Let's start with Jaron Ennis versus Usima Lima. This was originally a WBA eliminator. Now it's been elevated to a WBA interim title match. The winner of this fight will be the mandatory for Abbas Baru, which means more than likely, if Jaron Ennis gets past Usima Lima, he will fight Abbas Baru for the WBA title instead of Virgil Ortiz in January. So if we're going to see Virgil and Jaron Ennis go at it at 154, it will likely take place in the summertime if they're still winning. And it will be for a title if Boots is what people say he is. Both of these guys are stylistically tailor-made for Boots Ennis. But I still have my doubts this fight will take place at 154. I think more than likely if Boots Ennis and Virgil Ortiz keeps winning, this fight will take place at 160. And that's if they keep winning. When you marinate fights like this, something always ends up happening. One of these guys will end up losing. We're supposed to have a big mega fight in the heavyweight division back in the day. Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, they both end up losing. That fight went down the tubes. But we will see what happens because I still think, I'm going to stick to my guns on this, I think the fight will happen at 160. I know what Eddie Hearn is saying. He's saying if Boots doesn't fight Virgil, he's going to fight Fedora or Bakram. I don't see that happening. I don't believe that. Eddie Hearn is a good promoter. He says the right things. But Boots will be in there with Baru. But maybe Eddie could prove me wrong. We'll see. Now, David Benavidez recently did an interview with Marcus Villegas about the Terence Crawford fight and what he thought about it. I don't own the rights to this content. It's for educational purposes only. Let's listen to what David Benavidez has to say.
More serious than Canelo, which is kind of weird because, you know, the amount of money that Canelo was making. And I know all these people say, oh, yeah, you know, talking shit about Canelo. I'm not talking shit about him. He just didn't look like he really prepared 100%. He's throwing 10 punches around, or I think it was his ego is that big that he thought that, oh, I'm just going to walk through him, catch him with a good shot, and it's going to be done. As you can see, Crawford is a different type of fighter. Not only does he have the boxing IQ, he has that dog in him. He was in there, he was brawling with Canelo like in the 8th, 9th, getting the best out of him. Boxing, he's epitome of a great boxer. Brawling when he needs to brawl, boxing when he needs to box, and using his IQ. You know, he looked amazing. I don't want to be a hater, but that's kind of how I feel. But you know what I mean? I give all the flowers to Crawford, you know what I mean?
That should have been me in there. That should have been my...
If I would have got that fight, I would have been me. I would have been the one getting my hand raised. But like I said, it didn't happen. And that's why it didn't happen, because Canelo knows that would have happened.
Let's start with this narrative that Canelo didn't prepare for Terence Crawford. You know, people say he had an injury with the elbow that affected him. They say a lot of things about Canelo. One thing they do not say, he just wasn't good enough that night. Terence Crawford is a beast. And David Benavidez does say that later on in the video, later on in the interview, he does say that Terence Crawford is just a different breed. He knows how to brawl when it's time to brawl. And then he knows how to box and uses boxing IQ when it's time to do that. David Benavidez brings up another point. He says Crawford went in there the hungrier fighter. And it might be some truth to that. But my opinion is this. Canelo just didn't have an answer for Crawford. Like I said, he fought Benavidez, Munguia, John Ryder. Those are not fights that get you prepared for a Terence Crawford. On the other hand, you look at Madrimov. Madrimov gave Terence Crawford more problems than Canelo did. And they were making fun of Crawford's performance fighting Madrimov. I mean, remember the remarks they were saying? Crawford had trouble with a guy with 11 fights. That's what they were saying. He barely beat a guy with 11 fights. Then he goes in there and schools Canelo. You can't make this stuff up. But when it comes to David Benavidez talking about fighting Canelo, he said September 13th, it should have been my night. If I would have fought Canelo, the same thing would have happened. Now, him and Crawford are not the same fighter. David Benavidez is bigger than Crawford, but he doesn't have the boxing IQ that Crawford has. At least he hasn't shown us he has a boxing IQ that Terence Crawford has. And for that reason, I was doubting that David Benavidez can do it. But now maybe he's right. Maybe he would have done the same thing Terence Crawford has if he got the opportunity at 168. Maybe we'll find out at 175. If he can complete the task in front of him, starting with Anthony Yard, Beeble, and Beterbiev. That would make him undisputed champion at 175, and that will make the undisputed fight between Benavidez and Canelo much bigger, 100 times bigger than what it would have been at 168. But anyway, leave your thoughts and comments below. Beezy, I'm gone.